Hi, and thanks for tuning in to Analyse Maths. Today we're going to have a look at formula, and this is formula aimed at level 2 functional skills maths. So when we use formula in real life is when we have a constant and a variable. So constants are things that changes, variables are things that stays the same. So the easiest way to explain it is if you're on an hourly work contract rather than a salary. You get paid for the number of hours that you work. That number of hours could change on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis, or how often you get paid. So therefore your wages will be your rate of pay, which I'm hoping is not £5, but I'm going to say £5 just for the case of this example, multiplied by the number of hours. So when you come to questions with letters in them, please don't worry. The most common comment that I get in class is, oh my goodness, why is the alphabet in maths? Maths should be numbers. The alphabet is just there to represent an unknown. You are usually given that as part of the question, and you are using a technique known as substitution to then change that. So you're substituting in the number of hours for this H, and you're then solving for the wages. In functional skills and in maths, when things are next to each other, it means that we multiply. So I've just written £5 times H. That isn't how it would be expressed in maths. In maths, it would be more like W for wages equals 5H. So when things are next to each other without a symbol, that represents to multiply. So 5H would be 5 times H, which, as I say, in the question, it would tell you, for example, that they had worked 20 hours. So you would be doing 5 multiplied by 20. When one's above the other, as we've seen in previous things, we looked at this in the BIDMAS, when things are above each other, that means to divide. So if you had A over B, that's A divided by B. So next to each other is to multiply, over each other is to divide. So for this one, going back to this one, 5H will be 5 times 20, which would give us our 100. So as I say, when things are next to each other, it's times. When they're over each other, it's divide. And all you're doing is substituting in. Now, in some of the bigger questions, some of the maybe 3-mark questions, the first mark you're getting is for rewriting the question with some numbers in. So let's say you had 3x plus 2, and you were told in the question that x was 4. Now you know that when things are next to each other, it means to multiply, and you know that x is 4. So all this is saying, I'm going to pop some brackets in here so it doesn't get mixed up, is it's 3 times 4 plus your 2. So 3 times 4 is 12, 12 plus 2 is 14. So when you're dealing with formula, please do not panic. The alphabet is not in there to confuse you or to trick you or to hurt you. All the alphabet is there is for substitution. So let's have a look at what it might look like. So on non-calculator questions, we do sometimes get wordy questions, but more often than not, we just get a formula to deal with. But as you know, functional skills does love a good story, so it could be a wordy question. So at level 2, our questions could look like these. So what I would like you to do is think about what I've just said. Pause the tape and see if you can work out the answer to these 4. Thank you so much. Right, hopefully we've done these. Let's have a look. So 25 plus 4y when y equals 7. So 25 plus 4 times 7. So 25 plus 28, which will hopefully mean you all got 53 as your answer for this one. Right, let's look at this one. 4 root b when b is 81. So 4 root 81. Oh, what's it mean when things are next to each other with no symbol? It means times, doesn't it? I'll pop my times in there as well. And root 81, hopefully you've already watched my squares and square roots video. So root 81 is 9. So this is saying 4 times 9, which gives me 36. work out a plus b squared when a is 4 and b is 6. Okay, so 4 plus 6 squared. So 4 plus 6 is 10. 10 squared is 100. Last one, solve t equals 4x squared. So t equals 4, when they're next to each other it means to times, multiplied by x squared, x is 10, so multiplied by 10 squared. So 4 multiplied by 10 squared is 100, so 4 multiplied by 100 gives me 400. Okay, fingers crossed we've got a full house of correctness on that page. So that's what it looks like without a calculator. When you do have a calculator, we sometimes have things that have slightly a little bit more in them, and also the story ones. So let's look at the normal ones first. So here's a couple. Again, pause the video and give these a go. This first one is asking for your answer correct to 3 decimal places. So this is something you should know from current studies, but we'll have a look and see how you got on when we come back. So pause the video and give these two a go for me, please. Okay, let's have a look. So we had 2.67a on this first one. So again, if I rewrite it, so 2.67 multiplied by, it tells us a is 8. 4 multiplied by, it tells us y is 3.5. So this particular question was a 3-mark question. Mark number 1 is this. Mark number 1 is me rewriting it, substituting in my values for my letters there. So if I solved the top line, I would have ended up with 21.36. Solving the bottom line, I would have got 14. So my calculator would have told me that answer was 1.5257. Blah, blah, blah. It wanted it to 3 decimal places. So it wanted 3 numbers after the decimal point. Now I need to make sure I follow the rules of rounding. So because this number, position number 4, is a 7, that means this 5 needs to round up. If this had been a 4 or below, my 5 would have stayed the same, but 5 or above means it rounds up. So my final answer for all 3 marks, I would have needed 1.526. If you've written 1.525, you're on 2 marks out of 3. It explicitly told us 3 decimal places, and we needed to follow those rules of rounding. Let's look at this second one. So k equals 3. I'm going to fill in my values, 2.9 plus 7.15, and all of that is over 6. So if I add my things in the brackets together, because obviously BIDMAS, I do those first, 3 times by 10.05, because that 3 is next to the brackets with no symbol, so that means times, divided by 6, which would have given me, hopefully, you've all got a final answer of 5.025. If you've got anything different, you have rounded too early. So make sure you do not round until the very, very end. Now, as I alluded to earlier, they could be wordy questions. So let's have a look at a few of those. So on this one, Johan is using an old recipe. The recipe says to preheat the oven to 350 Fahrenheit. Now the oven Johan uses is in centigrade, and here is his formula for working out Fahrenheit to centigrade. Johan sets the oven for 190 degrees centigrade. Has Johan set it for the correct temperature? 2 exam tips on this question. Firstly, it says Johan sets the oven to 190. You don't care what Johan's done. This is what he's done in his house, in his kitchen. You don't care. You lovely humans listening to this are the mathematicians. You are going to work it out and tell Johan if he's right or not. Secondly, it says, has Johan set to the correct temperature? This question can only be answered by a yes or a no. Even if you've done all the maths and got the maths correct, you need to actually answer the question. You need to either say, yes, it's correct, or no, it's incorrect. Okay, that being said, pause the video, give it a go, and I'll see you in a minute. Right, let's go through this. So if I substituted in my numbers, 5 times F for Fahrenheit, so 350, minus 32 over 9. So if I then solve that on my calculator, don't forget that this is a multiply, it would have given me 176.66, blah, 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 blah. So if Johan said to 190, I'm afraid if we all go around to Johan's house, we're getting burned food. So it would be a no and 176.66 that we needed. So the mark scheme shows this. So if you've got that 176 and a no, that's correct. If you've got anything after the decimal point, 0.66 or 0.6, you're correct. If the question doesn't specify, you're always safer doing 2 decimal points if it doesn't tell you what it wants to do. Right, let's look at one more. So on this one, Magda wants to compare population density in 2 largest countries in the world, and she uses this formula for it. Canada has a population density of 3.75 people per kilometre, and Russia has this information. Now Magda thinks Russia has a greater population density than Canada. Is Magda correct? Again, we've got an is Magda correct, so we need a yes or a no. So pause the video and give this one a go for me, please. Okay, let's hope we're all sitting with the right answer. So we were working out Russia because we know Canada. So if I substitute in my values, 1.4396 over 2.59 multiplied by my 6.593. So again, mark number 1 was for me rewriting that question, substituting in the values. So even if I've done nothing else on this 3-mark question, I'm at mark number 1 for simply writing it out again and putting the numbers where the letters are. So if I then solved that, I would have ended up with a population density of 8.43. She thinks Russia's bigger than Canada, so is 8 bigger than 3? Yes, it is. So 8.43 and a yes would have got me the marks for that one. Okay, so thank you very much for staying with me to the end of the video. Please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, please pop them in the comment section and I will answer you as soon as I can. And best of luck in your studies, everybody. Bye.